let there be peace. I am a stand for peace, let there be love. I am a stand for love, let there be joy. I am a stand for joy. We are making a new world now. We are making a new world now.
Thank you, Mirabai and Steve. And good morning, everyone. Welcome to Unity Spiritual Community in Citrus Heights, where all people are welcome and where differences are celebrated as the splendor of God's creative expression. We open now with our daily word. Today is Sunday, April 11th, 2021, and today's word is imagination. I imagine limitless possibilities. I imagine limitless possibilities. In childhood, my imagination helped me see fascinating shapes and wondrous creatures in cloud formations. Picking up a twig, I might have pretended I held a wand that could give me magical powers. An ordinary packing box could become a vessel to sail on or under the seas, an aircraft to fly higher than mountains, or even a spaceship I could fly to explore the stars. Much more than whimsy, imagination is a potent spiritual tool. I use my imagination with intention to give shape to my dreams and goals. Although my childhood may be a memory, I am grateful that I can still use my imagination to create the life of my dreams as I envision possibilities beyond the reality I know and the world I see. And the scripture for today is from Luke 10:24. For I tell you that many prophets and kings desired to see what you see but did not see it, and to hear what you hear but did not hear it. And today's word is imagination. So we're very grateful to have Heartdream with us this morning. It's Reverend Carla's week off, and I'm trying out using my little loft study as my space. So if you see I'm working around with my technology a little bit today, it's because I have a big screen, my TV in front of me with my computer in front of that. So just bear with me as I enjoy this new space. So at this time, we would like to invite Heartdream to sing their opening song, Blessing to the World.
You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are, and all you
Thank you, Mirabai and Steve. For our featurette this morning, I'd like to read you a story that will come into play later in our talk. And this story is from a book called Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And she is a scientist. She's an environmental biologist, and she's also an enrolled member of the citizen Potawatomi Nation. So, and she's founder and director of the Center for Native Peoples and the Environment. So, this is a creation story, and it's called Sky Woman Falling. In winter, when the green earth lies resting beneath a blanket of snow, this is the time for storytelling. The storytellers begin by calling upon those who came before, who passed the stories down to us, for we are only messengers. In the beginning, there was the sky world. She fell like a maple seed, pirouetting on an autumn breeze. A column of light streamed from a hole in the sky world, marking her path where only darkness had been before. It took her a long time to fall. In fear, or maybe hope, she clutched a bundle tightly in her hand. Hurtling downward, she saw only dark water below. But in that emptiness, there were many eyes gazing up at the sudden shaft of light. They saw there a small object, a mere dust mote in the beam. As it grew closer, they could see that it was a woman, arms outstretched, long black hair billowing behind as she spiraled toward them. The geese nodded at one another and rose together from the water in a wave of goose music. She felt the beat of their wings as they flew beneath to break her fall. Far from the only home she'd ever known, she caught her breath at the warm embrace of soft feathers as they gently carried her downward. And so it began. The geese could not hold the woman above the water for much longer, so they called a council to decide what to do. Resting on their wings, she saw them all gather, loons, otters, swans, beavers, fish of all kinds. A great turtle floated in their midst and offered his back for her to rest upon. Gratefully, she stepped from the goose wings onto the dome of his shell. The others understood that she needed land for her home and discussed how they might serve her need. The deep divers among them had heard of mud at the bottom of the water and agreed to go find some. Loon dove first, but the distance was too far, and after a long while he surfaced with nothing to show for his efforts. One by one, the other animals offered to help: otter, beaver, sturgeon, but the depth, the darkness, and the pressures were too great for even the strongest of swimmers. They returned, gasping for air with their heads ringing. Some did not return at all. Soon, only little Muskrat was left, the weakest diver of all. He volunteered to go while the others looked on doubtfully. His small legs flailed as he worked his way downward, and he was gone a very long time. They waited and waited for him to return, fearing the worst for their relative, and before long, a stream of bubbles rose with the small, limp body of the muskrat. He had given his life to aid this helpless human. But then the others noticed that his paw was tightly clenched, and when they opened it, there was a small handful of mud. Turtle said, "Here, put it on my back, and I will hold it." Sky Woman bent and spread the mud with her hands across the shell of the turtle. Moved by the extraordinary gifts of the animals, she sang in thanksgiving and then began to dance. her feet caressing the earth. The land grew and grew as she danced her thanks, from the dab of mud on Turtle's back until the whole earth was made. Not by Sky Woman alone, but from the alchemy of all the animals' gifts, coupled with her deep gratitude. Together they formed what we know today as Turtle Island, our home. Like any good guest, Sky Woman had not come empty-handed. The bundle was still clutched in her hand. When she toppled from the hole in the sky world, she had reached out to grab onto the tree of life that grew there. In her grasp were branches, fruits and seeds, and all kinds of plants. These she scattered onto the new ground and carefully tended each one until the world turned from brown to green. Sunlight streamed through the hole from the sky world, allowing the seeds to flourish. Wild grasses, flowers, trees, and medicines spread everywhere. And now that the animals too had plenty to eat, many came to live with her on Turtle Island. And that is the end of the featurette. So now I'd like to ask Heartdream to return and perform for us another song.
All that I need comes to me. All that I need comes to me. The light of love and grace shines upon my face. All that I need comes to me. I've been set free, I'm released. I'm released. I've been set free, I'm released. The burden of my past has gone away at last. I've been set free, I'm released. Sweet rain that washes me clean. Washes me clean. Sweet rain that washes me clean. The mind creates all things, into my life it brings. Sweet rain that washes me clean. All that I need comes to me. Comes to me. All that I need comes to me. The light of love and grace shines upon my face. All that I need comes to me. The light of love and grace shines upon my face. All that I need comes to me, comes to me.
And now we take this time to bless our prayer requests. We draw all of our concerns into our hearts this morning, into our consciousness, our concerns for ourselves and for our loved ones and for the world. And we take those words of the daily word and we imagine that which we would love to see, that which we know is truth. And we release all of these concerns into the loving care of Christ's Spirit this morning, as we know that all things are possible in God and in Christ. And for this we give thanks. And you may call Silent Unity for your personal prayer requests. They are available as a service of our Greater Unity Ministry. They're available every day for your personal prayers, and that is 1-800-NOW-PRAY. Okay. And now, please join me to prepare for a time of meditation. And as we enter this time of meditation, find a comfortable position, relax into your chair, your feet into the floor, and breathe in, appreciating the clean air. And as you release your breath, just relax into the support under you and around you, within you always. And again, gently fill your body with the sweet, sweet breath of life, sustaining you and providing all that you need. Just release and relax, for there is nothing that you need to do or to be in this moment. Surrender to that which sustains you. Breathe again. Just take this precious moment to thank your body for housing you in this experience. Your beautiful, glorious body that allows you to be here in this world and to appreciate with your senses. Just appreciate the beautiful colors around you in this vivacious spring. The fresh smells of the earth and of food cooking. The harmonizing sounds of music and of birds and of voices of those that you love. The soft touch of a lover, of your dog or your cat, and a cozy blanket. What a gift it is to be here in this world. You are as the lily of the field, reaching up to the light of God, breathing freely, taking in all that you need and giving effortlessly of your beauty. The others around you are also a gift, and we sense them now, feeling our oneness and our connection. We connect with people, and we ground with the earth and connect with the trees. We sense our connection with the bees and with the animals of the ocean. We are one. All is provided. We balance together, naturally poised in a dance of creation and harmony with the earth and with the spheres. Rest now in gratitude, in the silence. I invite you now to return to this present moment, keeping this consciousness in your body and in your heart of oneness and gratitude. We give thanks, and so it is. Amen.
Dawn is breaking, noontime is over, a breeze is blowing through our heart. Circle of hands, give thanks to God. Beams of love cascade down. We are dancing in the light. In gratitude, we take flight. We are dancing to be free, to be free. We live in God, all sharing one name. The gift of love brings peace. Love overflowing, dreams unveiled. We are connected to one heart. We are dancing in the light. In gratitude, we take flight. We are dancing to be free, to be free. Gently, God plays the strings of our hearts. Every voice sings one name.
Thank you, Mirabai and Steve. That was such a beautiful song. Did you write that?
Yes.
Thank you so much. I can't tell you what a treat it is to be able to have Mirabai and Steve here with us this morning while I'm here. Usually they're here when I'm gone. So, so grateful for that. It just worked out that way.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Today's talk is entitled Living the Language of Abundance. And I was inspired to write this talk because I was reading this book, Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And I just was reading it for a book club, and someone else had suggested it. But it had some really, really inspiring ideas in it that also that were really corresponded with the ideas of that I've learned through Unity. So, what would you have you ever thought about what the world would look like if you had everything you want? Could you relax? And would you be happy? Personally, I'd like to have a never-ending collection of artistic clothes, flowers growing outside with fountains and labyrinths to walk, and music being made here and there, and a luscious vegetable garden, stimulating conversation, alternating with comfortable silence, moments for sweet lovemaking, and frequent swims in cool, fresh water. That's my kingdom of heaven. Is it available to me? Yes, absolutely. And it's so important to imagine that. And, actually, when I think about it, it is actually partly here. So maybe it is important to draw that in to my consciousness as the kingdom of heaven and how I'm manifesting that already in my world. Have you imagined your kingdom of heaven? Because it is right now and it's available to you. So, do you believe it and are you open to receive it? So, we have a framework of beliefs, and we usually have to do a little work to be aware of them. Many of them have been instilled from childhood through generations, from our parents, our families, or just held in mass consciousness. And for me, one of those beliefs that I have held is that I have to work hard to be acceptable and to be good enough. But really, no matter how much work I put in, how much effort, and how much inspiration, I still feel like it's not enough. Or maybe there's just a belief that I'm just not enough, period. And I think that that could be called original sin. Staying in these kind of beliefs, these error beliefs, always makes us unhappy. So, can we be aware of those beliefs? What if I am enough? What if you are enough? What if we can rest in the beauty of our souls and in the perfection of our presence here? All striving is passed away in a symbiotic dance of creation, of the flow of energy. So recently, I read this book, Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer, and she is a member of the citizen Potawatomi Nation. And she speaks of the Native American way that led to our term Indian giver. So, do you remember that term? Is that used in your childhood? Yeah. So, when I was a child, We used it to mean someone gave something and then they took it back, and it was a derogatory term. But this actually comes from a custom of the indigenous Americans, who did have another way of giving and of being in the world. When they saw a need, they would give, but they did expect it to come back to them. Not necessarily immediately, but they expected it to come back. So it wasn't a tit for tat arrangement, not a measuring of this compared to the worth of that. It was just that they knew the natural laws of the world and that everything circulates. You see a need and you fill it, and you release what you don't need. And you expect your needs to be met just because they are met. It's a natural law of the universe. The Potawatomi knew that we are one with the earth and with all of its inhabitants. So if we know that our needs are met, then we establish reverence. This was beautifully illustrated through Robin Wall Kimmerer's story of learning the Potawatomi language. She explains that it's very difficult to learn this old language, that there were only 9 elders left who spoke it, and the youngest of them was 70 years old. So this language was not only very, hardly anyone knew it, but the structure of the language is completely different. Oh, I'm just going to tell you an aside. You know, the reason why this language died out was because the Indian children were taken to schools and they were forced to only speak English. So that's why just the elders had it. So she went to a workshop to learn this language, and she found that the structure of the language is completely different. So I don't know if you are aware of how the structure of language reflects our way of thinking in a culture. Uh, I haven't studied enough languages in depth to fully understand this myself, but a few years back, there was a movie called Arrival, and Reverend Carla did do a talk about this movie a few years ago. And it was about a linguistics specialist learning to communicate with aliens who had landed on Earth. And if you're interested in this idea of our culture being reflected in our language, I highly recommend that you watch this movie if you haven't seen it, because the way that it shares the 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 thinking, the way of being of these extraterrestrial creatures, I should say, beings, is just beautiful. Now, the Potawatomi language and way of thinking may not be as different as those of the extraterrestrials in Arrival, but the difference in our thinking is clearly shown in the contrast of our creation stories. That of Sky Woman falling that we heard versus Eve and the Garden of Eden, in which Eve is cast out of the garden because of her choice to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And then she's forced to work and toil and work the earth to survive. In Sky Woman, all of the animals give of themselves to save her. And in gratitude, she showers abundance upon the land. Isn't that beautiful? So our language, English, is a noun-based language, and there's only 30% of the words are verbs. So The Potawatomi language is 70% verbs. Can you imagine what that makes us think that, oh, there must be a lot of action in that culture? Because we think of action verbs as action words, don't we? So the language is very complicated because to learn this language, you have to learn how to conjugate all these verbs, and you have to learn the tenses of all these verbs. Have you had to do that when I studied English and German and French. And I know that in Spanish, there are, we have tenses related to time, like past and present and future. But also, especially in Spanish and some of the other languages, we have a lot of words that are gender specific. They're male and female. But to me, it was very interesting that the Potawatomi language does not assign gender. Instead, the verbs are divided into animate and inanimate. So animate would be those creations that are imbued with the breath of life. Isn't that cool? And the verbs the verbs are words that we don't think of as action words at all, like to be a Saturday and to be a hill. So she spends a long time in this chapter of this book saying this in such a beautiful way, and her confusion with this and how long it took for her to begin to understand it. But she finally really understood it. With her, the clearest example to me also was with the word that meant to be a bay, which she says releases the water from bondage and lets it live. She says that this word holds the wonder that for this moment, the living water has decided to shelter itself between these shores, conversing with cedar roots and a flock of baby birds, because it could do otherwise, become a stream or an ocean or a waterfall, and there are verbs for that too. So this is what Kimmerer calls the grammar of animacy, in which we recognize the life force in all around us, even a rock. In Potawatomi, the word yaw, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but it's Y-A-W-E, is to be. And notice how close this is to Yahweh of the Old Testament, which is the I am, which is the breath of life within us and all around us, animating us and our world with spirit. So we only move into owning and buying through our belief in separation. When we recognize the breath of life all around us, we give freely, as easily as breathing. And we also inhale this breath of life to fulfill all of our needs, perhaps before they are even present to us. And as we're open and safe, we're filled up to overflowing, having all that we need and releasing and joyfully and easily, generously giving so that all may exist in this circulating, abundant world. The Potawatomi live the honorable harvest, where they take just what they need and they leave enough for the plants to be able to continue to flourish and provide for the future. So in a few weeks, I'm going to begin teaching a class on a book called In the Flow of Life by Eric Butterworth. He says that there are two kinds of giving. There's giving which is outer-centered, that depletes the giver, and giving which is inner-centered, which, I quote him, which endows the gift with that which transcends its intrinsic value and which so blesses the giver that, like the faucet filling the cup, he's immediately and correspondingly filled from within. Just take a second to think about that, how the faucet is always filled from this water pressure. This inner-centered giving is giving from the all-sufficiency of God, of the belief in oneness and divine supply. And Butterworth says that it's giving way to the flow that springs forth from the wellspring of all sufficiency, and that there's no sense of depletion in the giving, for the giving is also receiving. So I didn't come from this sense. The culture that I came from was very much a giving culture to those who needed it, but not the understanding of this circulation and all provision. And I think when we gave, there was always a sense of we're giving of ourselves in a way that perhaps we lose something. But I began to understand these concepts after I first began attending this church about over 10 years ago, when we had a 4T prosperity class, and I was invited to begin living these principles and these beliefs. And as I began to live in this consciousness, it was a bit like that moment before jumping into a cold lake, when you know it will be refreshing and enjoyable and just fine, and that if I didn't do it, I would regret it. You know, there's that instant of choice. Do I step off the boat into nothingness, or do I stay in safety and dullness? So as I step off the boat, there's exhilaration and anticipation, and then splash, and I'm under, searching for the surface and the next breath of air. And it is so refreshing. I did this just last week. Yes, I did jump off a boat into the San Joaquin River, and it was kind of cold. But I also did this with giving. I received a debit card in the mail for my economic impact stimulus payment. And I got a letter saying that the payment was for a certain amount. And there is a need that I'd been aware of that I wished could be filled for someone. But I had released this need to God, not feeling that it was my place with where I was to fill that need. But as when I received this card, I realized that that card could fill this need, and I decided to give it for this purpose. And the offer was received with gratitude. So, but what I didn't know until I made the call to activate the card was that the balance was actually 3 times the amount that the letter had said. So you see, my fountain was being filled even as I made the decision to give. And this is just the latest example from years of experiences in living this way. My fountain is flowing. It's especially awesome because usually I make a choice to give, just trusting that these resources are there. And then immediately, like the next day, I see it come back to me, it multiplied. And it's funny because you think, oh, they just say that's a rule of the universe a lot, but in my experience, it actually works when I'm led to do this, when I feel it from my heart. So now that I'm accustomed to living this way with my finances, I'm also learning to apply this belief to abundance in other ways that I may have felt lacking in the past, with an abundant supply of time, for instance, or of love, or of happiness. maybe health. You are a child of God. You are free to live in joy in your kingdom of heaven with the knowledge that not only are you enough, you have enough. You give and receive generously as you're guided, opening the flow of abundance to and through and around you. And the rocks and the hills and all creation are alive with the breath of spirit, and we are one. I close my talk with a poem by Mary Oliver. This is called Morning Poem, and it's from Dreamwork from 1986. Every morning, the world is created. Under the orange sticks of the sun, the heaped ashes of the night turn into leaves again and fasten themselves to the high branches, and the ponds appear like black cloth on which are painted islands of summer lilies. If it is your nature to be happy, you will swim away along the soft trails for hours, your imagination alighting everywhere. And if your spirit carries within it the thorn that is heavier than lead, if it's all that you can do to keep on trudging, there is still, somewhere deep within you, a beast shouting that the earth is exactly what it wanted. Each pond with its blazing lilies is a prayer heard and answered lavishly every morning, whether or not you have ever dared to be happy, whether or not you have ever dared to pray. And so it is. Thank you, God. Amen.
Oh, sing
Thank you again, Mirabai and Steve, for your beautiful music.
Welcome.
And now we take the time to bless our offering. Just as in the indigenous American world, uh, we learned the story of Turtle Island and of all the animals who share their gifts to create the world and this circulation that sustains and supports everyone. So we are in our community, and we give you thanks every day for your presence, for your gifts, for your support. We bless these offerings today with our unity's prosperity prayer, knowing that divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I choose to give, and all that I am open to receive. You may make your offerings either by mailing a check to our P.O. Box 2176, Citrus Heights, California 95611, or there is a donate button on our website on the homepage, and also on our newsletter that we send out each week. So thank you so much for taking advantage of this. I know that many of you give on a weekly basis, and this is what sustains our ministry. We have a few announcements this morning. The first is that our Lenten fund drive, in which we are giving to the Citrus Heights Homeless Assistance Resource Team, or HEART, and to their Navigator program. We raised $225, so we will be sending a check to HEART this week to support their work with the homeless in our community. So thank you all for your participation in that. And the next item that I'd like to draw your attention to is that I'm going to be beginning a class at the end of this month, beginning, I believe it is April 28th, it's Wednesday, and that'll go for 5 weeks. So in this class, we'll be exploring Eric Butterworth's book, In the Flow of Life. And I'm teaching this class as part of my credentialing for licensed Unity teacher. I'm required to teach 2 classes, but I was so excited that this book was on the list of allowed books to teach, because I had read this book a couple of years ago when I was going through the process of my mother-in-law's transition. And I'd love to share this with all of you. I know a couple of you have already signed up, and thanks so much for doing that. You can sign up. There's a link on the newsletter that came out yesterday, and also on our webpage, there's a classes page with the registration. And this class is basically give what you want. In our website, it says pick your price on the price thing. So you just enter however much you want to give, and you can come to the class. You're welcome to come as many weeks as you want. You're not required to attend the whole thing, but I welcome you to do that. So at this time, I would like to invite Heartdream to close us in song with our peace song.
Weave us together, weave us together in unity and love. Weave us together, weave us together in unity and love. There be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be. With God as creator,
Thank you, Mirabai and Steve. And we join together now in the prayer for protection, knowing that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us wherever we are. God is, and all is well. And so it is. God bless you all. Have a wonderful week. And please, we would love to have you stay and join us in the chat.